these are the top 15 businesses, according to ChatGPT, that normal people use to fund their own racing. I actually asked ChatGPT to name me the 15 most popular businesses that would allow somebody to spend at least $100,000 per year on the hobby of race car driving. The race car driving can be pretty expensive, and unless you have family money, you're gonna need to earn your own money elsewhere and spend it on racing at least to get started and learn.
I spent $400,000 on racing last year. Here's what I could have bought instead.
So I posted a video from $200, whether you're taking your car to a high performance driving education weekend, up to $1.5 million per year to do top tier sports car racing with Porsche Carrera Cup. And also, I'm currently in my 3rd year of racing. I'm racing the Miata North American Challenge, which could be done for $86,000 per year. We go to really amazing tracks and compete with the same exact purpose-built race car, so it's all about the driver learning the skills. So I'm gonna grade these businesses in 3 categories, and I'm gonna tier them. So the categories I'm really focusing on is the scalability, how much is the earning potential of the business. Also, how hard is it to start it up in terms of costs, and then on longevity. Will the industry change? Can this business stay around for quite a while, or is it something that needs constant attention from you to keep it going? So those 3 categories are gonna drive my decision to put it in the S superior category, A, B, C, or F. Do not attempt this business if your purpose is to earn money and start to go racing. The first one is real estate investing. That makes sense. I've met a lot of real estate investors at the track, both when I started at High Performance Driving Education, then when I did my Miatas, and also now when I'm doing the Miata Challenge. So the startup costs can be low with low cash methods like wholesaling real estate. The way the whole business works is it's kind of like a pawn shop, but for houses. So y'all are familiar with a pawn shop. You could take stuff from your closet that you don't want anymore, and then you end up giving it to them for a discount because you just want to get rid of it. You know they're going to resell it for more than you actually gave it to them for, and you're okay with that. Well, believe it or not, some people are so rich, they've got problem rental properties that aren't their main driver of income that become such a headache, they'd rather just focus on their main business and just unload that property to you for a discount. And that's what 9,000 of my customers actually do. My customers of Deal Machine, they're using Deal Machine to find data on who those people are, and then they're getting it for a 40% discount, and then they're turning around and selling it to someone else for a discounted fee, but not quite as discounted as they got it from the buyer. So you can make $20,000 on a single deal. One of the biggest names in the industry that you might recognize would be Homevestors, and you might see them on billboard or TV advertising. Scalability, I would say, is medium, because for a while, even though it's a low barrier to entry, you're gonna have to do quite a bit of the jobs and keep that business going. But if you can make $20,000 on a deal, you'll probably be able to take like 3 days off to go racing on a weekend, no problem. Longevity is excellent because wholesaling is a gateway into things that are longer standing, like rental properties, right? Wholesaling can be pretty transactional, but then you could buy real estate, typically doubles in value every 10 years. And so wholesaling helps you build your skills on analyzing deals, and it gives you the ability to kind of pick the best and keep and wholesale the rest. So that's why I would put real estate investing in the category for super. Great one to start, low barrier to entry, excellent longevity, and scalability is medium. The next one would be an automotive shop. So the startup cost would be medium because you're gonna have to either rent or buy specialty real estate. And if it's commercial, property that you're renting, that's gonna be a long-term contract that's worth probably over $100,000. Scalability is medium because it's brick and mortar. If you've got a 2-bay shop with 2 lifts, you can only be working on 2 cars at once. You couldn't really scale beyond that unless you invested more. That's why the scalability I put is medium, not high. And then longevity would be medium. It is brick and mortar, so you're planted in the ground. It would be hard for somebody to come in and disrupt your physical location, but there are cars that are coming out with 90% less moving parts. That was Tesla's big thing. We're seeing more and more electric cars that do have way less moving parts. They come to you in their own vehicle, so you may not be able to service the greater amount of electric vehicles that are coming on the market, so put longevity medium. And a fun fact, you don't have to own your own shop location. You can actually rent commercial space and look for pricing on that on a website called LoopNet, if you didn't know that. So I put automotive shop in the C category. Third one is construction contracting. The startup cost is low because you could actually go to the Thumbtack app. As a property investor myself, I'm always going to Thumbtack for certain jobs like, let me trash out this house, or I need flooring installed, or I need the baseboards totally ripped up. So I go to Thumbtack and look for somebody like that. And if the job goes well initially, then I'll hire him back for other jobs. So for you, you could do something that doesn't require a lot of skills, like trashing out a house. And then you could build a relationship with somebody like me who has the other jobs going on. You could kind of become an unofficial apprentice, either low cost, charge me just a little bit for manual labor, build up your skills, and then start charging more. The scalability is medium because you can earn a lot in this field. You could make probably $150, $200 an hour once your skills are quite advanced. And some quick math, $200 an hour, 40 hours a week would be the equivalent to $400,000 a year. So you could see that would provide you quite a bit of money to go racing on a Friday through Sunday. Longevity is poor because it's a physical job, and after 20 years, maybe your joints won't work as well. But I did put it as an A because it's a way for you to go from no skills to really high earning potential, doing jobs that a lot of people over the last 10 years haven't gone into. So there's a shortage, which drives the price for those jobs up. You can make quite a bit of money and build your skills and earning potential quickly. Fun fact, WD-40 actually has 2,000 documented use cases, so be sure to add that to your tool belt. And my favorite one was cleaning grass and preventing that from sticking to your lawnmower blades. Number 4 would be a marketing media agency. The startup cost here is pretty low because if you have the skills, then you could just start offering your services on a website like Fiverr. The scalability is medium. It does require you for quite a bit, just like real estate investing would at the beginning. And the longevity, I put as a medium, right? So it's not physically hard, but it is like a people-intensive business if you end up building an agency out. And if you don't focus on the business for a while, you're gonna have to come back and clean up some problems that develop. I sat down with my friend in Austin, Joe Federal, who is full-time traveling around the country racing spec Miatas. And he's able to do that because he started a marketing agency with a couple other guys, and they've also hired people to come in and run that business. I would put that one as an A because of the low startup costs and decent scalability and longevity. Number 5 would be an e-commerce store. So the startup costs there would be low. I'm thinking about these print-on-demand options like Printful and Printify. They allow you to design a hat on an iPad and put it on a website, and people can start buying it, and the hat doesn't actually get printed and made until they buy it with the print-on-demand services. You don't have the traditional warehousing or stocking fees or bulk orders that you need to invest in up front, but the actual longevity is low. You have to always be creating new ideas. And this happened recently with the Hawk Tuah girl. When her meme was going viral, people made hats that said Hawk Tuah, and they probably sold those for about 3 months like hotcakes until she ended up getting a lawyer, trademarking Hawk Tuah, preventing those people from selling more hats. Then she started selling the hats. And after about 3 months, all the hype died down and probably nobody's selling the hats now. But you could build a great business like that if you're always focusing on what is the current viral thing of the moment with a low startup cost, make a decent amount of money, but you have to always be doing that. So fun fact, not on the print on demand stuff, but another type of e-commerce store. My neighbor, Steven, right across the street, is actually the top Insta360 camera partner in the United States on Amazon. And so he actually rents a warehouse and he buys bulk inventory from China, and then he sells it on Amazon. And a lot of his business is using algorithms to make sure that his Amazon listing is showing up top when people search for these action cameras. And then he's always monitoring his competitors' pricing and playing a little bit of game theory by if making his $2 cheaper than theirs, or if they lower the price, does he put his price back up and take lower, hits on the search results to make more money? He does pretty well. I'd started that from scratch, so I was really proud to know Steven. I thought that was worth mentioning as an option on the e-commerce side. So for e-commerce store, I would put a B. 6 would be a car dealership. So the startup cost for a Chevrolet dealership is $11 million. So think about the nice storefront and showroom and the inventory they have. That's why the startup cost is so high. And the scalability is medium because they're doing a lot of volume in a lot of those stores. And the longevity is high because Chevrolet actually has to approve where those stores go. And once you have one, they're not going to approve another one going in right across the street. And once you have a dealership with Chevrolet that's proven you can be a good business owner there, then other car brands I've noticed are happy to let you take their dealerships too. So you might have the Nissan store right across the street. And that's how these dealerships of different brands end up being clustered. So once you're in, pretty good longevity, I would say. I just think that if you have that kind of money to start a car dealership, this video is not for you because you could just go racing right now. So I would put an F for that reason, because the car dealership business model has such a high upfront cost. So 7 would be a tech company, SaaS company. So in addition to real estate investing, I actually have a software for real estate investors called Deal Machine. And the startup cost on a software is very high. That's why so many tech companies need a lot of funding, because if you don't have the skills yourself, or even if you do, you typically need to invest a lot of time or buy others' time to build the software. Thanks to that though, the scalability is pretty high. If you can have a lot of customers using the software, all you have to do these days is scale up your servers and make sure Amazon can scale that up to allow the additional traffic to, make sure the app works for everybody. And then the longevity is medium. You do have to keep innovating in order to be the software of choice, especially as new technologies like AI are kind of coming in and making basic software a bit of a commodity. So it may have a high scalability, but it does have high startup costs and medium longevity. So if you don't like change, it's not the business for you. But I would put that as a B, franchise ownership. So this could be anybody from home investors on the real estate investing side to a McDonald's. And a McDonald's would actually cost $1.4 to $2 million to start, and you need to make a down payment of $500,000. The startup cost is on the McDonald's is very high. The scalability is medium because it's brick and mortar and you can only fit so many people in the McDonald's. It is better than a car dealership though, because you have 2 bays, you can only have 2 cars. McDonald's can have a lot of registers, people going in and out of that drive-through. And the longevity is medium again, because it's brick and mortar, it's probably gonna stay there for a while. So the startup cost is a bit tricky, but even on the low end, you could, home investors doesn't necessarily require physical office space, and their fee would be more along the lines, I think, of $30,000-ish. Maybe a low-cost franchise could be a B because it has all the systems there for you. But definitely the McDonald's version, I would put an F, but this category I'll put a B because there's quite a few low-cost franchises that would be available that you could research. 9 would be professional services firm. The first thing I thought of was a tax accounting firm. The startup cost is low. Some of these you need an education, some you don't. So to be an accountant, you do have to have the education, but you could get that from honestly a community college where the cost is low. The scalability is medium because you can hire other people to do parts of that business that you don't have to do. So you could pay somebody $15 an hour to do bookkeeping and charge $45 an hour. And the longevity is medium. It's a business that literally everyone needs, but President Trump is toying with the idea of getting rid of the income tax, which would greatly reduce the need for a tax accountant. So just to keep that in mind, the way you do that business might change in the future, but I would say I would give this one an A because of the startup cost being low and the ability to charge $45 for something you only pay $15 an hour for. So I think that is decent scalability as well. 10 would be motorsport event business. So I'm thinking in Austin, Texas, there's a group called 10, The Exotic Network. And it started by 2 young 21-year-old guys named Adonis and Anand. They actually really liked cars and they started going to car events. They started making friends with people who own supercars. Then they planned an event where they invited their friends with supercars to come meet and go on a drive. And it's so cool because the startup cost of organizing this is literally zero. It's just their own networking. And the scalability is kind of limited to Austin, Texas, at least. The way they can get paid on the business is if they have 20, and I've gone on some of these drives. We met at the Petrol Lounge, which provides car storage to exotic car owners. And then we had lunch over at a luxury resort. So if you think about it, I'm sure the Petrol Lounge wouldn't mind paying these 2 young hustlers $1,000 to get 50 of their ideal clients to come spend an hour and a half at the Petrol Lounge. And then I'm sure the luxury resort wouldn't mind kicking back some fees to my 2 young hustlers that organize 50 people to come have lunch and may come back for maybe an overnight stay at the resort. So I think it's really cool business. It does have low scalability because the Petrol Lounge can only hold, they can't hold 1,000 supercar owners. There's a physical limit. I think the connections in this type of business might lend themselves to a connection in racing. So I put it as a B. And you can't do this in every city. Like in St. Louis, Missouri or Indianapolis, it would be a lot harder to start this business, frankly, because there's just less supercar owners than there are in Austin, Texas, where there's a lot of money floating around. So again, consider your location and skill set. The 11th business is a logistics and trucking company. So one of my customers at Deal Machine, who is a big wholesaler, they also have a trucking company. The startup cost is low because you could basically broker deals. So people who own trucks and are driving stuff around the country, whether it's freight or in my case, I've hired people to take my Ferrari from Indianapolis to Austin, Texas, because I own 2 cars and I can't drive them both. And I didn't want to put the miles on the Ferrari, I'd rather put it on my Tesla. So when I hired them to ship that car, I had been introduced to a guy, and the guy posted it on a website like dat.com, where you can sign up for $150 a month to be a broker. And there's no actual certification or education needed to be a trucking broker. You just need to, bring the load. It says, submit your load, and then truckers will come look at the loads and they'll bid on that job. So you can get paid the middleman fee because the truckers are busy. They don't have time to fill up their schedule and logistically, map it out. They just know, hey, I'm taking something from Indianapolis to Austin, so I'm gonna look on this website, see if there's a job from Austin to somewhere else I could pick up. And you can make the middleman fee for connecting those dots. And so I would put that as a B, a pretty high earning potential and not a lot of startup costs. 12 would be a consulting business. So the startup cost is low when you're selling your skills. The scalability could be medium and the longevity could be, I would put low. So example, when I was starting out in my early 20s, I want to learn how to write sales copy like via email that would motivate somebody to go buy something from me. I bought a copywriting course from Ramit Sethi. He's got a book on how I teach you to be rich. I also recently bought a course in the last year for $1,000 from Ryan Pineda on how to actually, build my social media skills so more people can know about what I do and the businesses that I have. And I could help a lot of more people than just one-on-one. If you're a young person thinking about this, a skill you have is probably social media is second nature to you. But for me, I'm 35. I didn't grow up with as much social media as you did. So it's worth it for me to pay $1,000 to learn something that comes, firsthand to you and speed up my learning curve on that. So I want you guys to think about skills you have and take for granted that like older, richer people might really appreciate. So the startup cost is low, it's knowledge you have. Scalability is medium. You could help one-on-one, or you could make a course eventually. The longevity I think is low though, because you always need to be keeping your skills up or offering something new or in a new way to stay relevant. So it does involve you to come back and be involved with the business. I think it's a great business. I put it as a B on our tier list. The next one I want to talk about is a fitness instructor. I took this as owning a fitness studio. I think the startup cost is pretty high because you have to have a good location. Otherwise, people aren't going to drive 30 minutes for a workout. So the real estate in a good location is going to be kind of high, whether you buy it or rent it. And then you need to have equipment. So depending on the type of fitness you do, I looked up a Techna gym, which is a middle of the road gym equipment. Refurbished shoulder press is $3,500. So if you have a gym, you're going to need like lots of different equipment. Or if you do like a Pilates studio, I know those reformers and megaformers can cost as much as $12,000. Let's say you buy 5 and you have space for 5 people. The scalability is kind of low because you can only teach 5 people at once in that studio. You probably only teach 6 to 8 classes per day. So there is a limit. You need to buy more brick and mortar and more stuff in order to earn more money. So I would say longevity, scalability is on the low end. You've got to be involved to also stay relevant. There's a lot of new fitness techniques always coming into play. So I would put the fitness one as an F. If your goal is to build a business, I don't think that's a bad business, but it's not the one for you if you want to take off 4 days a week and go racing. 14 is a creative agency. You could think about designing those hats for people that do print on demand. You could think about designing websites. You could design shirts. There's a website, 4 million people a year actually buy something on Fiverr. So that's where you could find these creative jobs. I would say the startup cost is low because it's your skills. It's your own creativity. You already have it. The scalability is low because it involves you. You'd have to do a lot of work in order to build up something where other people are actually doing the work and you're just organizing it. And the longevity, I would say, is low because you have things like ChatGPT that can now do a ton of graphic design that was previously only able to be done by humans. So I would say that creative agency studio for most people is gonna be a C. It does have a low startup cost, and if you're really good at it, it could be your ticket in. But for most people, it's probably not the right business if you want to go get into racing. So 15 is a motorsport gear brand. So the startup cost on that's pretty high. I actually had a recent experience with one of these types of brands called Livery, LVRY, last year when I went to the National Autosport Association Championships. There was a brand there, they were selling brand new fire suits. They looked amazing, they had a European trim fit, but I researched the guy. He actually has been a president of a marketing agency since 2016, so about 10 years. And he raced Porsche because, and again, in my video, I tell you that the Porsche is like not cheap to race. It's $1.5 million to do the Porsche Carrera Cup. So he already had his own money before he started this brand. I haven't seen a successful motorsport brand like that from somebody who's not already in racing. But I would say the scalability is low because there's not a lot of people in the United States especially that buy fire suits. And also the longevity is fairly low because, I mean, those get replaced every 10 years. So you always have to be finding new customers. You may not have a lot of repeat business in terms of the fire certification. That's when those suits need to get replaced every 10 years. So yeah, I would put that one as a C. You know, it's just not something I think you'd be able to pull off. There'd be easier businesses that would pay you more and be easier to scale. So those are the 15 businesses and how I would tier them in terms of what you might consider to start working on in order to fund your racing. If you guys want to know more about the details of what different levels of racing cost, check out this video here on how to start with $200. Subscribe for more videos on racing and starting a business.